Hey, it worked this time. That was like the third time I've tried to go live. So let me make sure that I send this out on Twitter real quick. Man, I had to reboot. So sorry for anybody on Twitter that was waiting to see it. My 5 minutes turned into 15 minutes. So excited to be live again. I know I did not get live last weekend. It's just been a little bit crazy here. This in here, live link. So a couple things I wanted to talk about today, as answer questions as they come in. Also, any comments. So if you're watching this, non-live, put some comments in there and let me know kind of, hey, what's a good time? Is this a good format? What do you want to see out of these live stream videos? So I want to make sure that I'm doing the right things as far as like getting good times and providing the right kind of content. So let me pull up this here. Like I said, I had to reboot my computer just could not get live working. So I'm going to go through a couple articles that I think are really important today, and then also I'm going to go through the community site and talk about some of the comments and some of the questions that I got this week. So this is going to be a fun session. All right, so the first one that I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to post this here in the comments. But there's this 2019, so yet another 2019 prediction for what's going to happen from an AI perspective. And, as you kind of go through this, it's going to give some recommendations. And I just like reading these. I mean, I know as we get towards the end of the year, it becomes really popular to, have these 2019. I mean, you've seen a couple of my videos talking about that. So, but one of the big things here was they were talking about who owns the AI business. And so specifically, where are these projects coming out of? Who's managing these projects? Who's responsible for funding these projects, right? Like, so, if you want to do something and, you're looking to expand your team or you want to join that team, where should you find people, when you're trying to connect or, talking through the application process? Specifically, there was the breakdown of who owns it. So, like I said, I posted it in the comment section here below, and I'll throw it in the description down below. But they were saying that 24% of respondents said that the AI Center of Excellence, which I thought that was pretty cool. That we're starting to get to see an indication that these are real live, right? These are things that kind of projects that need to be kind of managed on their own, right? They're not side projects and some of the other things. Now, I will say there's not really a good split, like as far as like one person, one group leading in this. So like there's 24% is the highest, and that's the AI Center of Excellence. But then you have, like I said, it's spread around, like you got automation group, you've got the data analytics group, which I would have thought they would have the majority. So they're the next highest majority with 19%. So I would think that more of those projects, but maybe that's just kind of delegating and understanding that we're moving to an area where a lot of organizations, especially the larger ones, are going to have these AI centers of excellence, and data analytics is going to fall in that bucket, and other things too, like maybe IoT and some of the other technologies and things that are kind of taking that automation and AI to the forefront. So I thought that was a really good article. Like I said, I put it in the comment section here below. So if you're interested, make sure you look at that. And then there's this other video, or I'm sorry, there's this other. I'm on a video, but there's this other link, and I sent this out actually. So if anybody that I work with is watching, hello, thanks for joining. But I sent out yesterday this post about it's the top. Let me put it in the comment section here below. Definitely, if you're watching this, or if you're watching this afterwards, make sure that you go and visit this. This is probably one of my favorite links that I found, at least in the last half of the year. So this is really cool. So it's the top AI, the top AI research papers for 2018. The cool thing about it is, I always talk about going and going through and reading some of these papers, even if you don't understand them, because it just helps you. And sometimes I've had to read them like 2 or 3 times, like, so it's not anything. And then after 2 or 3 times, I didn't really understand them. But so you're like, okay, Thomas, this is great. You posted some papers here. What makes it so amazing? It's not just that it's a curated list of those most important papers. They give you summaries too. So if you don't want to read them, or if you want to read it and be like, okay, well, I didn't really understand it, but what does it really mean? They actually break it down. So they give you the abstract, talk about their summary, but then they'll also say, okay, what's the core idea of this paper? So why does it make sense, right? What's the key achievement? What does the community think? And then future areas, and then like where it's going to fit in from a business perspective. So I thought that was really cool. So it's kind of like, giving you the cliff notes of the top papers for 2018. So definitely bookmark that. If you've got some downtime in the next month or two, make sure you kind of knock that out and look at that. So got a question here. Google offers these certifications, exams. Do I think they're helpful? Yeah. So specifically, I've looked into a few of those. I know they have like a data engineering one. And so I've got some posts and some things that I'm going to be doing around the first of the year that I'll talk about some of my goals for certifications and where I'm going to go. And so I'm looking at all these right now, but you're specifically asking, okay, is this helpful? Is this helpful for data engineers? Is it helpful for a machine learning engineer? If you've seen any of my other videos where I've talked about, the AWS certification or Hortonworks or Cloudera certifications, it's all going to depend, right? It's going to depend on what you're trying to do. So, what your role is, so if you're looking to be a data engineer, maybe a machine learning engineer, and the organization you're working in, or your group is working off AWS or Hortonworks or Cloudera or GCP with Google or Azure, insert any of the names above, then those certifications are going to bring a lot of value versus, hey, if you're an organization, you primarily use Hortonworks, you guys aren't looking to go to GCP or anything like that, and you want to get that. I'm not saying it won't be helpful, but just kind of think about that. And the same goes for if you're applying for certain positions. So I would go out there and look and see, okay, what are some of the most popular ones, or what positions am I applying for that have those certifications. So but outside of that, I don't want to steer anybody away from not doing learning. So I have certifications in areas that I don't really do anymore. So like one of them, maybe it's expired. I think I did a video on it with the Big Data Beard team, but I had a Scrum Master certification. So I went through that. We were using it a little bit in one of the groups I was in, and then we kind of fell away from it. But I still kept that certification. I still tried to keep it up to date for a couple years afterwards, just because I thought it was a pretty cool certification. I liked the information that I learned in there, even though I wasn't using it even on a daily basis. And I would say I wasn't even using it on a monthly basis, but at that point. So to each their own. Never want to steer you away from like, hey, looking at new technologies or looking for new areas. But for the most part, it's going to fall into, okay, what am I trying to do today in my day, in what I'm working on? What do I see coming in the next 6 months? If you see GCP and some of the other things, then man, I jump all over that. So like I said, those are the same kind of questions that I'm kind of working with as I'm looking for, what am I going to do for certifications in the next year? So I'm going to put some pretty aggressive goals down. So stay tuned. Can a PHP developer become a data engineer? And if yes, then how? Hey, that's a great question. If you've been following along, maybe you don't know. So I'm gonna tell you my background. I was a .NET developer. So I was a .NET developer for years. Actually did VB, and then I switched over to C# there. So I kind of had a similar background. I did some PHP work, but let's just stick with the .NET on my perspective. But we're talking web developers in general, right? So you have some experience coding, you have some experience on the back end. You're not talking about just CSS and some of the front end, some of the heavy front end pieces. So you've got that language development, you've got some of that software engineering. So 100% you can become a data engineer. Outside of that, and I say all that just to tell you that's my story. Like I came from that world, volunteered to get on a project, really dug into the sandboxes, and got involved with Pig and the community, and just building my own Hadoop cluster, and working through some projects. So definitely it's something that you can do from a web developer, because I've came from that. But I think broad generally, I think most people can, right? I don't think that there's a barrier to entry that says, hey, you have to do X, Y, Z before you get in. I think we all kind of come from different backgrounds and different work experiences to become data engineers. Because if you think about it, I mean, data engineer and for sure machine learning engineer, and, whatever, whatever we're calling it, in different areas, because there's a ton of different names, whether it be data engineer wizard or something like that. They're relatively new positions. So, there's no this background would be the make for the best person. So how do you do it? So I've got a lot of videos on here, but I'll just kind of talk through my first blocking and tackling steps, that I see. So decide kind of what you want to do from a data engineering perspective. Being from the PHP world and developer world, maybe you don't have a good grasp on what some of the different roles are. So my suggestion would be to go out there and start playing with like the Hortonworks Sandbox, the Cloudera Sandbox. Let me actually send you a link. So this is the cool thing about doing YouTube Live. So let me make sure I put it in here for you. HDP Sandbox. So, and I'll tell you, this is how I started, and actually the project that I was on, this is how everybody on that team actually started. So here's the Hortonworks Sandbox. You can download that and run that in a VM and start playing around with it. There's some tutorials there. I did want to say, I forgot I should have said this to start with. So I'm a Pluralsight author. Right now, this weekend, Pluralsight, I think all their videos are free. So you can actually go through and look at some of the Pluralsight courses. My suggestion, and this is the way that, I taught this course. I taught these Pluralsight courses based off the experience I had as coming from a web developer, not really understanding data engineering, to jumping into, writing MapReduce jobs, running pig jobs, setting up our environment. All that being said, that sandbox that I just sent you, if you download that sandbox, you can follow along with the majority of all the tutorials I have on here, except for I have one around Splunk, but I actually do use the sandbox for the Splunk one. So there's a little bit of coolness there. So there's my there's my courses, and so my courses that I have. So I would start with the getting started with HDFS. So I would do the getting started with HDFS and just kind of go through and start playing around with that. And that's a good one. And like I said, this weekend, Pluralsight, I think all the courses, I think you can go through, and they're all free. So there was a big announcement earlier this week. So hi Thomas, thanks for the effort. Do I think there will be a shift from JVM to Python in the data engineering field? I hope so. So the question is it going to be is it going to be a shift maybe from away from so much of Java and the things that we have to do there towards Python? And I really do, especially when you look at what's going on in the deep learning community. And I laugh because I actually posted on Facebook or I'm sorry, on Twitter yesterday, a picture of a car that was on fire. Kind of, it's a funny GIF, right? A car on fire coming down a muddy road, going up and down. And that was like me saying, "Oh, I've got the wrong JVM installed." So that's a little bit of a joke. I do think it is. Like I said, if you look and see what's going on, anything with TensorFlow, Cafe, PyTorch, the big deep learning projects. Like I'm working through a machine learning engineer course for Pluralsight, all based off, it's all based off of Python, right? And so I think that's the advantage, and I think that's why we're seeing so much excitement. I started this live video talking about what's going on from a prediction standpoint in 2019. And I think one of the big shifts and why there's so much excitement around AI and deep learning is because it's easy. Like the APIs are all in Python. And if you look at what Spark did, right? Spark, they do Scala, they do Java, but they also have Python. So they have those higher level APIs so that you're not worried about having to manage, what happens when you have the right version of Java and let me compile this and let me push it out there. It's so much easier just to write that Python job or copy and paste it from GitHub, right? There's so much out there on GitHub, and put that in there and then just type out Python, space, whatever, whatever you're trying to execute. So I definitely think that's a big key. And look at the adoption too. So that's a great question. And my little brother is watching this. So he asked me if I just got out of bed. Actually, I did get out of bed about an hour and a half ago. I'm on my third cup of coffee, and I've showered and I'm about to head to the gym. So, yeah, I did not just get out of bed. So thank you. Are any software development lifecycle tutorials oriented towards the data engineer, which you should suggest? I don't have any that I've seen, and that's a really good question. Um, Man, that's really good. I've kind of toyed around with that and kind of looking at it because of the fact that maybe more of a model, right? Like what's the life cycle of a model and the iteration of it. So I don't know of any, but that I'm going to take that. Let me actually write that. I'm going to take that and put this on my list here. That's a pretty good question. That's a pretty good topic question. So I might try to make a video to really kind of give my perspective on where I see it, because of the fact that, I've talked about it before. Just a second. So I've talked about it before on here where I've started getting into machine learning. I'm talking about the Pluralsight course that I'm working on, but the fact that you go from training your model, you go from inference, and then if you push it out to, like, say that you're building a model that can work on a drone that could go and detect. There was one I was talking about this week with some folks around a drone that can detect for sharks in the water, right? And so say that you have that model, right? Well, there is iterations of it too. It's like, even if it's in production, it's out there working, you're still training to make it better. But what's that kind of process? What's that process for look like? And so that's a really good question. So it's pretty. So so I'm going to say, I don't know of any videos or any kind of tutorials that are around that, but I'm sure there have to be some things coming down the pipe. If I'm just guessing right offhand, I know I've seen some stuff around what is it, TFX? So how they push production. So I'm not sure if that's really going to address all the things that you're looking for. So it just depends on where you're looking for. But I haven't seen anything in particular. I would think from a TensorFlow perspective, we would see some kind of coding and modeling for that. So, well, I was trying to jump on a little bit earlier so I could do 30 minutes, but I do have to run. I had to reboot my computer. So anybody that's been with me for the whole start of this knows, we got like 10 minutes late. So, but thanks again. I think I'm going to try to jump on tomorrow too, because I think I hadn't pushed out enough around the things from a Pluralsight perspective this weekend. So I want to make sure everybody knows, because anybody that doesn't have a Pluralsight subscription that wanted to see some of my courses or wanted to know how to get started, this is a great weekend to start. So maybe I should make more of an emphasis around that for everybody, so they can go out and actually watch my courses. So if you've been following me on this channel, it's a good time to look at it. So I should have done a better job of communicating that. So. But everybody have a great weekend. I'll try to jump in if you have a chance tomorrow. But thanks for the questions, and thanks for tuning in. And anybody that's watching this post-production, let me know if there's a better time, format, what you'd like to see out of these YouTube lives.